The man I loved was a lie. Inside the suitcase, fake passports, shredded memories, and the truth that shattered everything. Was I in love, or just an experiment? I wasn't supposed to see the suitcase. It was wedged under the bed, duct-taped shut, with a lock I didn't recognize. My fiancée was supposed to be on a business trip, but at 3:17 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the front door opening and closing. Quietly. I didn't move. I listened. Footsteps. Inside the house. Then silence. When I finally crept down the hallway, heart racing, I saw the impossible. He was standing in the kitchen, covered in dirt, wearing the same clothes he left in 2 days ago. And in his hand? A photo of me, ripped in half. Red triangle pointed out I was engaged to a stranger. And whatever he was hiding, I wasn't meant to find it. When I met Ryan Winters, he was charm in human form. The kind of man who didn't just light up a room, he rewired it. We met at a tech conference in Chicago. I was speaking on cybersecurity. He was listed as a consultant. Confident, low-voiced, clean-cut. He bought me a coffee after my panel. Said something clever about firewalls and relationships. We were inseparable by the end of the weekend. 2 years later, we were engaged. Our life together was Pinterest perfect. Matching mugs. Dual toothbrush charger. His and hers closets. He was working for a private contractor in logistics, always vague about the details. I worked remote as a data analyst, so we saw each other between his travel windows. But there were signs. I ignored them. The burner phone in the glove compartment. The late-night calls that ended when I walked in. The safe I never had the code to. It started unraveling the week before our wedding invitations were supposed to go out. Ryan told me he had to leave town. Just a few days. Emergency contract meeting. His suitcase was packed too quickly. Too clean. I kissed his cheek goodbye. Told him I'd finalize the RSVP list. But 3 nights later, I woke up to a noise in the house. I thought maybe I left a window open. Maybe the wind knocked something over. But when I got to the kitchen, I found Ryan. Standing in the dark. His hands trembling. The photo was one of our engagement shots. It had been on the fridge. Now it was torn down the middle. He didn't see me at first. When he did, he froze. "I thought you were asleep," he said. "You were supposed to be in D.C., I whispered. He stared at me for a second too long, then forced a smile. Flight got canceled. Storms. At 3 a.m.? He walked past me, brushing my arm without a word, and went into the bedroom. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the torn photo in my hand. After he showered and crashed, I crept back into the bedroom. His bag was shoved beneath the bed. I pulled it out slowly. It was heavy, taped, locked, and I had the overwhelming sense that whatever was in there, it wasn't supposed to be in our house. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the suitcase. And the next morning, Ryan acted like nothing happened. But something had changed. I started noticing more gaps, discrepancies. He said he was in New York, but the bank charged him for gas in Pennsylvania. He said he didn't use Facebook. But I found an old profile with pictures of him and a woman I'd never seen before, intimate, recent. When I asked about it, he was cool. "Old friend," he said. "You know how people cling to the past." But the woman had commented on one of the posts last week. The next time he left for work, I followed him. I used a rideshare under a fake name. Kept my distance. He didn't go to the airport. He went to a storage facility 2 towns over. He stayed inside for almost an hour. When he came out, he looked different. Shaken. And he was holding a sealed envelope. After he left, I rented the unit next door using a prepaid card and ID from college. Waited. The next day, I broke in. What I found made my stomach twist. Boxes filled with passports. All with Ryan's face. All different names. Stacks of cash. Foreign currencies. Disguises. A laptop with no serial number. And at the bottom of one box, a wedding photo. Ryan. And the same woman from Facebook. The date stamp? 3 years ago. Before we met. I went home. Threw up. Stared at the ring on my finger like it had turned to ash. He was still gone. I opened his safe with the backup key he didn't know I knew about. Inside was a list. A dossier. With my name on it. Background. School. Socials. Photos. Notes about my habits. When I sleep. When I work. When I leave the house. That night, I packed a bag. Not to run. To get answers. Because I wasn't just engaged to a liar. I was engaged to a man who'd been studying me. The question wasn't what he was hiding anymore. The question was, Red Triangle pointed out, who did he think I was? The morning after discovering the dossier with my name in Ryan's safe, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak in the house, every passing car, set my nerves on edge. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I decided to confront Ryan directly. When he returned from his supposed business trip, I was ready. As he walked through the door, I stood in the living room, holding the torn photograph. Care to explain this? I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He glanced at the photo, then at me, his expression unreadable. It's just an old picture, he said casually. Don't lie to me, Ryan. I found the safe. I saw the dossier with my name on it. Who are you really? His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something, fear? Anger? You shouldn't have gone through my things, he said coldly. And you shouldn't have lied to me. I shot back. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated, he said, but I promise, I can explain everything. Ryan sat me down and began to unravel a story that sounded like it belonged in a spy novel. He claimed to be working undercover for a government agency, tasked with infiltrating criminal organizations. The multiple passports, the cash, the surveillance, it was all part of his cover. I didn't tell you because it was safer for you not to know, he said. I wanted to believe him, but something didn't add up. If he was protecting me, why was there a detailed file on me in his safe? Despite his explanations, I couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan was still hiding something. I decided to dig deeper. I reached out to a friend who worked in federal law enforcement, asking if there was any record of Ryan Winters working with any government agency. The response came back negative. Now, I knew for certain Ryan was lying. I began to plan my escape. I couldn't confront him again without risking my safety. I started gathering my important documents, packing a bag, and looking for a safe place to stay. But before I could leave, I needed to find out the full extent of Ryan's deception. I returned to the storage unit, this time determined to uncover everything. I searched through the boxes, looking for any clues. In a hidden compartment, I found a flash drive labeled Project Echo. I took it home and plugged it into my laptop, heart pounding. The files contained surveillance footage, financial records, and detailed reports on various individuals, including me. It was clear that Ryan had been monitoring me long before we met. I realized that our entire relationship had been a lie. Ryan had targeted me for some unknown reason, and I was just a pawn in his game. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I needed to expose him and protect myself. I contacted my friend in law enforcement again, this time sharing the contents of the flash drive. They assured me they would investigate and advised me to go into hiding until they could ensure my safety. I packed my bags and left that night, not looking back. Now, I'm in a safe location, waiting for the authorities to take action. I don't know what Ryan's true intentions were, but I know that I narrowly escaped a dangerous situation. This experience has taught me to trust my instincts and to never ignore the red flags. But I can't help but wonder, how many others has Ryan deceived? And will he ever be brought to justice? It had been 4 days since I found the photo. The one with Ethan in a foreign city, in a sharp gray suit, beside a woman I'd never seen before, smiling like it was their wedding day. Only it wasn't our wedding. I was 99% sure it wasn't even the same continent. The architecture in the background, the script on the sign behind them, it wasn't English. I didn't ask him about it. Not yet. Instead, I let the silence stretch. I played the role. I waited. Because when someone is hiding something, the worst thing you can do is tip them off that you know. Ethan was still acting normal. Too normal. And that terrified me. I went digging. His old laptop, the one he thought he'd wiped before upgrading, was in the back of the hall closet. Dead battery. Dusty. But not dead. I charged it. Waited. And when it finally powered on, there it was. A folder hidden behind layers of boring code. Receipts, ID scans, airline tickets. Not just one woman. 3. All in different countries. All calling him by different names. I froze. This wasn't a love triangle. This was a web. I didn't trust myself to untangle it. So I called a PI. A woman named Charlotte with a dry voice and eyes that didn't miss anything. He's living multiple lives, she said after 3 days. And I think this goes deeper than just affairs. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Like what? She hesitated. Do you know what shell corporations are? No, I didn't. But by the time she was done explaining, I understood one thing. Ethan wasn't just hiding a woman. He was hiding an empire. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him smiling in those photos like I didn't exist. Like we were the lie. I got up at 2:47 a.m. and walked into his office. For once, I didn't care if I got caught. I opened every drawer, every cabinet, and at the back of the lowest shelf, behind a stack of fake financial reports, I found it. A passport. Not Ethan's name, not Ethan's photo, but his face, and 4 different aliases stamped across the pages. My phone buzzed the next morning. Charlotte's voice was tight. "We have a problem." I pulled some offshore filings under one of his aliases. "One of the companies?" "It's flagged." "Flagged how?" "It's been linked to international trafficking." My knees buckled. "No. I need you to listen to me very carefully," she said. "You need to leave. Tonight. And you need to not tell him where you're going." I packed only what I needed. Charlotte gave me a contact in another city, someone who could help me file an anonymous tip, someone who could keep me off-grid. I left a note. Something vague. Something emotional. Something he would believe. I didn't say goodbye. Because you don't say goodbye to someone who never really existed. 3 days into hiding, I met Charlotte's contact, an older man named Marcus, ex-law enforcement. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You were living with a ghost. But ghosts like him? They don't disappear quietly." He showed me files. Names of women who'd vanished. Stories that never made the news. Places Ethan had been. Patterns. "Are you saying he's dangerous?" I asked. "I'm saying you were lucky to find out when you did." That night, I received a text from Ethan. Not, "Where are you?" Not, "Come home." Just 3 chilling words. "You shouldn't have looked." It had been a week since I went into hiding. The days were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. Then, one evening, there was a knock at the door. I peered through the peephole and saw a woman I didn't recognize. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder. I opened the door cautiously. "Are you Emily?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "I'm Sarah. I think we need to talk." "It's about Ethan." We sat in the small kitchen, the tension palpable. Sarah revealed that she had been in a relationship with Ethan 2 years ago. Her story mirrored mine: charm, secrecy, and a sudden disappearance. She had also discovered a hidden life, multiple identities, offshore accounts, and connections to illegal activities. Her warning was clear: Ethan was dangerous. "He changes names like clothes," Sarah said. "But it's always the same pattern. And when he thinks someone is getting too close, he finds a way to vanish. Or worse." Sarah explained that she had spent months tracing pieces of Ethan's life. She even showed me photographs of him with different IDs, different addresses. He had lived under aliases like Mark Spencer, Eric Hall, and even posed as an IT consultant named Jared. One picture showed him at what looked like a tech conference. Another, standing in front of a villa in Portugal. I could barely reconcile the man in the photos with the Ethan I knew. Sarah handed me a flash drive. "I managed to copy some of his files before he vanished," she said. I plugged it into my laptop, and a trove of documents appeared: financial records, communication logs, and surveillance footage. Among them was a video of Ethan meeting with a known criminal figure. The evidence was damning. Bank transfers to shell corporations. Encrypted emails containing names of targets. Even references to past partners, some who had disappeared without a trace. There were maps, coordinates, strange notes referencing code words: Silver Vault, Project Echo, and chillingly, Phase 4, contingency in case of exposure. With this new information, I contacted Charlotte, the private investigator. She advised me to take the evidence to the authorities. Together, we arranged a meeting with federal agents. The agents were shocked by the depth of Ethan's deception. They launched an official investigation, placing me and Sarah under protective custody. But something about it didn't feel right. Too quick. Too easy. Almost like they'd been expecting it. That night, I checked the flash drive again. And buried deep in the metadata of one document was a curious detail. It had been last accessed by someone from within the Department of Justice. Despite the precautions, Ethan found us. One night, he confronted me outside the safe house. "You shouldn't have involved them," he said coldly. "You shouldn't have lied," I replied, standing my ground. Before he could react, federal agents intervened, arresting him on the spot. But Ethan didn't struggle. He smiled, as if everything was going exactly as planned. Ethan was charged with multiple crimes, including fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The trial was swift, and he was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Sarah and I testified, our stories shedding light on his manipulative tactics. But behind the scenes, the investigation team changed. Our handler was reassigned. The new one, Agent Harper, seemed distracted, evasive. When I asked for updates, she gave vague answers. Sarah started to worry. They're hiding something, she said. Then, one morning, I received an envelope under my door. No return address. Just a single sheet of paper with a name, Jonathan Griggs. I searched it online. He was the lead investigator in an old cold case involving a covert government program called Nexus 12. The case vanished from the public record 5 years ago. In the months that followed, I worked to rebuild my life. The experience left scars, but also a newfound strength. I learned to trust my instincts and value transparency in relationships. But I couldn't let go of the feeling that something bigger was being buried. So I flew to DC using a fake name. Charlotte arranged for me to meet someone off the grid, a former intelligence analyst named Dominic who had gone rogue years ago. We met in a coffee shop near Union Station. He looked rough, paranoid, but he listened. When I mentioned Ethan, his eyes narrowed. You just poked the hive, he said. Ethan's not a con artist. He's part of a program. One that trains people to infiltrate and destabilize relationships, companies, even governments. And now that you know, they'll come after you too. Sarah and I remained in contact, supporting each other through the healing process. We even started a blog to share our experiences, hoping to help others avoid similar situations. We called it Behind the Mask. Each post uncovered another red flag, another story from victims like us. Our inbox flooded with similar tales. But then, they started disappearing. One by one, the victims who had reached out stopped replying. Their accounts vanished. Phone numbers disconnected. Sarah got spooked. We need to shut it down. Not yet, I said. We're too close. Just as I began to feel safe, I received an anonymous email. Ethan wasn't working alone. Attached was a photo of Ethan with another man, someone I recognized. It was my boss. I stared at it for 10 minutes, unable to breathe. The man who had hired me, mentored me, vouched for me. I searched for his name, only to find it connected to a shell company from one of Ethan's offshore accounts. Everything spiraled. My job, my finances, my stability, all manipulated. All orchestrated. I wasn't just dating a liar. I was part of a test. A long con. A social experiment with me as the variable. That night, I received another email. This time, it was a video. Ethan, in prison, looking directly at the camera. You think it's over? You have no idea what you're part of. The screen cut to black. Then a single message appeared. Phase 2 begins now. I didn't sleep after watching the video. Ethan's face haunted my every thought. The phrase, Phase 2 begins now, echoed like a warning siren. I knew what I had to do. I reached out to Dominic again, this time through a secure burner device he had given me. I told him everything about the photo of my boss, the blog, the disappearing victims. He responded with just one line. Time to go deeper. Dominic arranged a meeting in an abandoned Cold War-era communications bunker just outside Arlington. It was miles from anything, buried beneath layers of concrete and dirt. I had to pass through 3 locked gates just to reach the steel door. Inside, the air was stale and damp, but the place thrummed with life, old servers, maps, paper files, and a massive whiteboard covered in notes, arrows, and photographs. This, Dominic said, gesturing to the chaos, is the hive. The real project? Nexus 12 was just the surface. He handed me a dossier with the label, Operation Decoy. You weren't just part of a test. You were the test. They use people like Ethan to construct false realities, then monitor emotional and psychological response in high-risk environments. Romantic partners, employers, friends, all controlled. My stomach dropped. So I was never really free? Dominic nodded. Every choice you thought you made, they were nudging you, watching, studying. He showed me a sealed room at the back of the bunker. We call this the Echo Room. It's how we track active field agents in sleeper roles. The screens inside showed dozens of names, some real, some aliases, and locations. My boss was there. So was Ethan. So was Sarah. Wait, Sarah. I gasped. She's here. Dominic hesitated. She came to us for protection. But then she vanished. My blood turned ice. You think she was taken? He looked at me with the gravest expression I'd seen. Or she was never on your side to begin with. I traced back every conversation I'd had with Sarah. The flash drive. The blog. Our late-night talks. It all seemed genuine until I remembered one night when she borrowed my laptop. Said hers died. Could she have copied my files? Dominic confirmed my worst fear. Your system's been compromised. They knew every step you made. You need to disappear, Dominic said. We can't protect you anymore. Not if they've marked you. He handed me a packet. New ID. Passport. Cash. A phone with only one number saved. His. There's one last lead you might want to chase before you vanish. It's the only time you'll get it. He gave me a torn envelope. Inside was a postcard with a single word. Penumbra. And a location. Juneau, Alaska. It took me days to get there. Flights. Ferries. Buses. I traveled under an alias, watching every face around me. Juneau was quiet. Too quiet. The address led to a shuttered medical facility surrounded by snow and silence. I broke in through the back. Inside, I found a sealed freezer marked with an insignia I'd seen in Ethan's files, 2 triangles crossing, with a snake coiled inside. Inside the freezer, rows of labeled vials, folders, and a hard drive. I plugged the drive into a field laptop Dominic gave me. What I saw made my heart stop. There were thousands of files. Recordings. Surveillance. Logs of everything from my childhood to my most recent conversations. They had been monitoring me for years. Long before Ethan. My parents. My first therapist. Even the college professor who inspired me. All of them were part of the program. It wasn't about Ethan. It was about me. I was the subject. Not of an experiment. Of a weaponization project. The last file was a video. It showed Ethan, Sarah, and a third person I couldn't see. They were standing in front of a screen with my photo. A voice spoke. Subject 41 shows high resilience, analytical capacity, and adaptive emotional control. Recommendation: activate final phase. Ethan turned to the camera and said, "She's ready." The video cut to static. I stumbled back, dropping the laptop. I wasn't just monitored. I was built. Dominic called that night. Dominic called that night. "Did you find it?" "They built me," I whispered. "Why?" He paused. "Because you're the next generation. A weaponized empath. And someone out there wants to turn you on." The line went dead. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the snowy hills outside the window. And then I heard it. A familiar knock. 3 soft raps. Just like Ethan used to. I didn't move. Because I already knew who it was. I didn't open the door. I just waited, breath caught in my chest, ears tuned to every creak of the cabin. The knock came again. 3 soft taps. Then silence. I grabbed Dominic's burner phone, ready to dial, but the screen flickered. No signal. Just static. And then a text appeared on screen that made my blood run cold. "Come outside. It's time to remember." I stepped outside into the snow, heart pounding like a war drum. There, standing under the moonlight, was Ethan. He looked the same. Calm. Almost too calm. But something behind his eyes had changed. Something broken. "You found the files," he said simply. I didn't respond. He nodded anyway. "Good. Then you understand why this has to end." Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a silver case. He opened it, revealing 2 syringes. One red. One blue. "This is the choice they never thought you'd get. Red disables your programming. Blue completes it. What happens if I do nothing? Then they finish phase 3. And you'll become the thing you've been trained to stop." He held them out to me. "It's your turn now." I stared at the syringes, frozen. Ethan stepped closer. They called it Project Orion. The idea wasn't just surveillance. It was transformation. Create empathy-driven soldiers who could dismantle enemies from within. You were the prototype. I shook my head, disbelief warring with everything I'd seen. "And Sarah?" "My family. Sarah was assigned to your emotional arc. Your family engineered support structures. All of it designed to mimic free will." I felt sick. A drone overhead whirred to life. Lights shone down. Then a voice crackled through hidden speakers. "Do not inject. Subject 41, you are entering a restricted threshold. Surrender now." Ethan grabbed my hand. "This is your last window. You choose, or they choose for you." I looked at the syringes. I looked at him. And I ran. Deep in the facility, Dominic had left one final backup plan. A fail-safe vault. Inside, a terminal. A hardwired system that couldn't be accessed remotely. I reached it minutes later, snow soaking through my boots. The terminal blinked to life, requesting a biometric scan. I placed my hand on the pad. Subject confirmed. Initiate memory archive. Everything poured in. Not just memories. Not just training. Whole lives. Entire realities. I hadn't been just one person. I'd been dozens. Reset and repurposed each time a test completed. They weren't tracking growth. They were simulating worlds. And then the truth hit me. The project wasn't about me. It was about them. Who would follow? My programming was a template. But the next generation? Already being built. I returned to the surface. Ethan stood there, still waiting, the syringes in his hand. You saw it, he said. I nodded. Then you know what we have to do. I took the red syringe, stabbed it into his neck. He gasped, eyes wide. Why? I stepped back, shaking. Because this ends with me. Dominic's voice came through the emergency channel, faint but urgent. They've initiated override protocol. Get to the uplink. Send the data. It's the only way. I ran. Through fire. Through sirens. Through the collapsing skeleton of everything I thought was real. I reached the uplink. Inserted the drive. Hit send. 2 days later, I woke up in a motel in Utah. No name. No ID. Just a laptop beside me with one message flashing across the screen. Transmission received. Network compromised. Project Orion. Terminated. I looked out the window at the sunrise. I wasn't anyone anymore. And for the first time in my life, that felt free.